Hey guys, this is Xavier with Notebooks.com. Today I'm going to show you Adobe Photoshop CS5's Content Aware feature. This is a photograph of my wife and I on a recent trip to Chicago, and I wanted to upload this to Facebook to share this photo with my friends and family. We're on the sky deck. It's a really cool thing where you can walk out over the edge. You're standing on plexiglass, and it feels like you're floating over the city. It's pretty cool stuff, but in this photograph, we have this corner here that kind of ruins the effect. It looks like there's a line growing out of my wife's head, and I'd really like to get rid of that. Now, in most image editing software, such as Apple's Aperture 3, you can retouch stuff like this. The problem is it doesn't do a very good job and it doesn't look natural. So let's go ahead over to here and grab a repair brush. And if we just go in here and try to repair this, whether we're using clone or we're using the repair function, the results aren't going to be pretty. I haven't done it with this photograph yet, but just based on my experience, I can tell you it's not going to look very natural. If I release the trackpad mouse button, we'll see the results here in just a second. And as you can see, there's this big smudge. It looks like somebody took a wet finger to a photograph that was freshly printed and just sort of smudged this out. It's not the best results. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. And I'm going to open the same photograph in Adobe Photoshop CS5. Now, Aperture is a great application for organizing photos, tagging them, generally working with basic fixes, but if you want to get pixel level control, I highly recommend investing in a copy of Adobe CS5 that includes Photoshop. I have the Master Collection installed on my MacBook Pro, but if you just need Photoshop or a couple of apps, you can buy them individually. So I'm going to go in here and going to adjust the brushes to about the width of this corner we've got here. It looks about 60 pixels or so. That looks about right. And I'm going to adjust the hardness a bit so it's not hard edges. And it's really important here that I'm going to check off Content Aware. What this does is it forces Adobe Photoshop CS5 to actually consider what's going on in the photograph, not just what's going on within a couple of individual pixels. As you can see, we have streets, we have buildings, and we want them to be cloned kind of. We want them to be filled in there, and we want it to look natural. So I'm just going to go in here and really quickly highlight this corner. Now I'm using the trackpad on my MacBook Pro, so this line isn't very straight. If I was using a Wacom tablet or another pointer, it'd be a lot more accurate, but for these purposes it should be just fine. I'm going to go in here, and here we go, selecting all this stuff that we find undesirable. And when I release this, Adobe's actually going to start drawing objects in there and guess at what should be behind this corner that is not showing up. And there we go. That's a pretty good job. If you zoom in here, you can see that it's pretty hard to distinguish where Adobe messed with the photograph and where it didn't. Right behind my wife's head, you can see it sort of guessed at the shape of what the building should be. It's not perfect, so what we can do is go in here and adjust the size of my brush and do it again. So right in here, there's some weirdness going on with her hair in this building. And there's also a little bit of blurring going on. It didn't do a very good job there. It's not perfect, so we'll just leave it alone for now. We can always come back in and retouch manually. And as you can see, it didn't get this shape very well right in here. And that fixes that. And keep in mind, if you're doing this as a professional project for a client or something, you probably wouldn't want to use this tool just very quickly like we just did. But for the purposes of uploading it to Facebook, it serves that purpose just fine. And as you can see, it looks like we're floating in space a bit more. I really quickly did this. It took me only a few seconds. In the old versions of Photoshop, it would take a lot longer. A lot of professionals are even using this as a first pass at retouching a photo, and then going in there and adjusting, doing the finer adjustments, just like we would do here. We can maybe do an auto contrast and see what happens to bring out our faces a bit more, give it a little more contrast, and we're done. So within a few seconds with CS5, we have a perfectly good photo that I'd be more than comfortable putting up on Facebook and sort of telling people like, hey, we're floating above Chicago. This is Xavier with Notebooks.com, and this is Content Aware features in Adobe Photoshop CS5.